Hi, the purpose of this video is to help you get ready for our assessment this week over European settlement of North America. So I'm making this video on behalf of Mr. Trick and myself, and I'm hoping that by showing you the rubric we're going to use on your assessment and walking you through some examples, you'll better understand what we're looking for as you prepare this week for that test. So first, I want to show you the rubric that we will use to grade your responses. Remember, you will have several extended response prompts on the assessment this week and no other types of questions. So it's important for you to do a good job and really show what you've learned in this unit in those extended responses. So the rubric, of course, you want to try to stay in this left-hand column as much as possible. You will get a bulk of points in the content category. This is social studies, so mostly what we're looking for is the correct information explained clearly in your own words. So first step is make sure that you answer all parts of the question. Each one of the questions on this assessment has multiple parts to it, so don't forget to answer each of those parts. The next category is information. You should use relevant information from your notes, from TCI, from discussions we've had in class in order to answer the prompts. Try to be as specific as possible and give examples where you can. The next is elaboration. This is an area that always helps you in extended response answers. Trying to explain exactly what you mean by the facts you're using will help you to score better. Remember, you're trying to show us that you learned and understood the information in this unit. So always try to elaborate in a way that makes us understand that you understand the information. Then down in the structure category, we're looking for two things. We're looking for format. In other words, do you organize your response in a way that makes it easy to find the information clearly and logically? And then, of course, grammar. So looking for capital letters at the beginning of sentences, avoiding run-ons and fragments, capitalizing proper nouns, and then using good spelling in your response so that your meaning is clear. Okay, so that's the rubric we'll use to grade your responses. Now I'm going to take you through some sample responses. And I want you to decide how well you think this imaginary student did on the response. Okay, first sample question. This comes right off your study guide. Our learning standard states that we need to master why European nations colonized in the New World. Choose two of the nations we learned about and identify one resource each nation gained through colonization and explain how it impacted their mother nation. Okay, this is a sample response. The French colonized the New World because they wanted beaver pelts. French explorers were pleased when they landed in Canada because they discovered that beaver there were plentiful. At home in Europe, beaver had been hunted to extinction. French people loved to make hats and coats out of beaver, so they were excited to set up trading posts with the Native Americans who were expert hunters. This impacted France because they got the thing they wanted and also made friends with the Native Americans, which would help them later. So, take a minute to think through the areas. I want you to rate this in content, in structure, and in grammar. Okay, hopefully you took a minute to think through those areas. I would rate this down quite a bit in content because the prompt asked the student to talk about two different European countries and how they benefited from their settlements in North America. And this response does a good job of describing the French, but it does not include any other European nation. So probably would take about half points off in the content category for not following directions completely and talking about two different nations. I think it does a pretty good job in elaboration because for the one country they did talk about, they did at least go into a lot of detail and really explain what they meant. So elaboration is a strength here, but unfortunately, since they only answered half the prompt, they're going to lose a lot of points on this one in that area. The organization of the response is fine, and the grammar is fine. The spelling is not great, so there could be a lost point or so here for spelling so many words wrong. Okay, the next prompt from your study guide. Each of the countries that we studied explored and settled in the New World to find wealth. Choose 2 countries that sought the same resource. Identify the resource and explain why this would be a cause for conflict. Here's the response. The French and Dutch both sought to control the fur trade in the New World, bringing them into conflict with each other. Fur, and especially beaver pelts, were valuable to the Europeans who had hunted their own beaver population to the point of extinction. The French established a good rapport with the Huron tribe in Canada and built a strong presence in the fur trade. The Dutch allied themselves with the enemies of the Hurons, the Iroquois natives, in the area of present-day New York. This alliance allowed them to keep the French from moving south and controlling the fur trade in the Ohio Valley. The conflict over who would control the fur trade in the Americas led to conflict between the French and the Dutch through their support of warring tribes. Okay, think back to content, structure, and grammar, and think about how you would rate this answer. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to think through this response. I actually think this is a really good response. I would give it a lot of points in content, in structure, and in grammar. The answer is complete. All parts of the question are answered. It's organized in a logical way. The student used vocabulary from the unit and used it correctly. They elaborated on what they meant by their statements, and they used good grammar, good sentence structure. They capitalized proper nouns. This is a really good response and maybe would even score a perfect score. Okay, our final example is for this question from the study guide. Throughout our study this year, we will be focusing on what lessons we can learn from history. Considering this, begin by choosing one of the following ideas: Columbian exchange, impact of a global economy, impact of global shared resources, impact of mixing cultures from different parts of the world. With the idea you chose above, complete the following. Explain what that idea or event is, identify what we can learn from the event, explain why it is important for us to know about that event. Sample. The Columbian Exchange is when ideas, food, animals, and diseases moved from Europe, Asia, and Africa to North America, and food, animals, and ideas moved from North America to Europe, Asia, and Africa a long time ago. What we can learn from this is how things got where they are today, like Italy never had tomatoes to make pizza and spaghetti until this happened. It's important for us to know about this because we still use these things today and this back and forth still happens. Take a minute and rate this response. Okay, the way I would look at this response is actually they did answer all parts of the prompt, but they didn't use a lot of information from the unit to really show that they understood the unit. So this really lacks a lot of elaboration, and so it would lose points in the content category for that. Down at the bottom where it says it's important to know about this because we still use these things today and this back and forth still happens. That would have been a great place to talk about globalization and some of the information that we talked about concerning globalization at the beginning of this unit. And so the student really missed an opportunity here to show more of what they knew. Another area of weakness here is you probably picked up on the fact that there are some run-on sentences. There are some missed commas, and there are some proper nouns that are not capitalized. So grammar would probably be scored down. I actually think it's organized pretty well as far as defining the chosen topic and then explaining why it was important then and why it's important now. It just really lacks some of that detail that would have earned this person more points. Okay, so now we want you to try. Please try writing a complete answer to at least one of the questions on the study guide. Use the charts on the study guide, use TCI and any other information you learned in class to formulate your response. It would be great then if you shared it with a classmate or one of your friends so that they could give you some feedback, maybe in the form of adding comments to the side of the document to let you know how well they think you did on it, what things you could add, or maybe what things you could take out to make your response better. Okay, see you in class next time.